All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Wind Up Wednesdays. Today we have rockstar agent Dan Kitajima, who has graciously accepted our invite to do a webinar with us today. So we're going to jump right in and talk to Dan. So first, Dan, tell us how long you've been an agent. I know that I heard that you started at AAA, and I did also. That's where I started my insurance career when I finally became a licensed agent. So tell us about, what your process was, where you came from, and how you got to where you are.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that about you, Mo. But yeah, thanks for having me on, first of all. Looking forward to trying to help out and bring as much value as possible. But I started, once I graduated from college, I started at AAA at the call center there. Worked there for 3 years. Got licensed, got trained. And then after that, it was 2000. So I graduated from college, and then 2004, I got a job there. 3 years later, in 2007, I started my own agency.
Uh, that's impressive, man. It took me 4 years at least of being at AAA. I was a field agent, so I wasn't in the call center. But I got a lot of value from working there, and their training was fantastic, man. And that's kind of what Najee. He's my DM, and
Oh, okay.
when we met, and he was like, "Oh, you're from AAA." He was like, "How do I get you over here?"
Yeah.
So they really provide a great training system there, and they work us to a point where you don't want to work for them anymore, though. So that's why it was like time for me, at least, to like, okay, I got to start my own thing here.
Yeah, we could talk about that. And when you say that's impressive after 3 years, it really wasn't by choice, if you know what I mean.
Tell me more about that.
Well, it didn't work out basically, so I had to figure out what to do next.
Mhm.
But you're absolutely spot on about, you know, they work you hard and you do learn a lot, but not necessarily the culture isn't as great, where people are appreciated, or the way to lead is not by motivating, it's maybe by fear. So although I got a lot of good things out of it, I also feel like as a leader, I learned how not to be, you know, as a manager or leader. So a lot of good lessons, both good and bad. And that's really what experiences really teach us is how to become better, what things are going to help you, and what things, what sometimes what not to do are just as important too.
You're 100% spot on with that, man. Because I liked working there because I was making really good money. I was in the top 10% every single month in, month out. So I was killing it, man. I was making 200K over there. And
Nice.
I had to jump out of my comfort zone to start my own thing here. But really, what shocked me out of it was the culture over there. And if you do really good, you know this. If you really one of their heavy hitters, they don't even want you to go on vacation there. So for me, it was missing my daughter's first steps, and I was like, all
Mm.
right, I'm done. But enough about AAA. Let's talk about the transition and when you first started your agency. So a lot of agents that join the group tell me that their hardest hurdle is staffing, and that's across the board. I hear that from every agent, every state. California is California. We won't jump into that too much, but you've been successful in creating a staff and growing and multiplying from there. So tell us a little bit about how you go about finding your staff.
Finding staff, yeah, sure. It's really all and everywhere. There's not one source that I could rely on. It's just something where you just have to be always aware of your next recruit. Sometimes I look at my job as I'm not looking for the next sale, I'm looking for the next hire. So that it takes that much attention. So that's why I like having different duties, not so I'm not that busy with sales and customer service, so I could focus more on staffing. So one of the first things is to just block out some time and really spend time on looking for right staff. And once you find staff, then the work just starts. But when you talk about finding staff, I mean, sometimes I have siblings working here, natural market. Some of the customers, they used to be customers that are working here. One of the good sources that I actually has worked really well in the past for me, not as much so much, is this Craigslist, because I'm looking for just entry level people.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'm also do Ideal Traits, which is a great resource for us.
Mhm.
I also do team hire. So to answer your question, Mo, I do everything I can because it's so hard to find a good person that really requires that much attention, time, and financial incentives. Sometimes, if I'm really in a situation want to grow, I'll throw out a bonus out there. Hey, staff, everybody. Hey, if I find somebody, there's $1,000 bonus I could pay out. And putting it out on social media. So it's like basically your answer is not just one thing, but everything, because that's how important it is. So I think I would say it's maybe the most important job we have as agency owners to find the right staff.
That's
So it only makes sense that we are going to use that much time and effort to try to find somebody that we like to work with. It's a long-term commitment, and that we're really going to help really, and in return they're going to help us.
absolutely, absolutely. Your agency is only as strong as your staff. So it's hard. It's hard finding good staff. The turnover is always going to be there. But your answer is 100% on point because you've got to be looking everywhere. And that's what I found because at first my DM, for example, told me just post it online and you'll start finding people. But also, when you go to the bank, when you go to the coffee shop, always be aware of the people that are doing a good job there and talk to them about it. Talk to them and say, hey, is this your career? Are you looking for a career? Because what we offer isn't just a job; it's a career path. So that's a great answer from you there. Now, as far as management goes, what have you found to be one of the most motivating ways to motivate your staff?
Yeah, I want to add something to that, Mo. That's a really good point that your manager, DM talked about. Is sometimes when we post things online, we have to kind of keep in mind that the people who are looking for jobs are not necessarily the um, at the highest level, because there might be a reason, and some of it is justified, but there might be a reason why they're looking. You know, so sometimes instead of posting it and waiting for things to come, because you're just going to get people who things didn't work out. Because if you're a real winner, the place you're at is probably doing everything they can to keep you happy and stay there. So sometimes I think as agency owners, we can't rely on posting and having people come to us, but we have to actually look and recruit people from make leaving their current situation, because that's where the good people are. They're already working somewhere else. So we have to have a little bit more of an aggressive approach when it comes to recruiting, and not just posting and waiting for people to come to us, because um, it's not that easy these days. But yeah, when it comes to, I'm sorry, what was it, managing or motivating them?
Yeah, how do you motivate your staff?
Yeah, there's so many ways. I mean, one of them is definitely financial. That's the whole reason they're come to work.
Mhm.
So we got to keep that in mind. So when it comes to financial incentives, we got to make sure the compensation plan is motivating enough where they can make some real money, where they have the opportunity. So I will motivate them by saying, hey, if you're doing good, then you'll get more leads. And for them, they'll understand, hey, more leads equals more commission. So some people really work well with that type of motivation, but we can't assume everybody's like that too. So other people are motivated with, hey, like you talked about, Mo, hey, I just want to be at a place that really understands what my needs are, um, outside of work, more freedom or more leniency, spending time with the kids, more days off. That's important to them, which is completely fine. Some people are motivated by just, feeling like they're a part of a team, or just they get a high off really providing good customer service. There's just so many different things that motivates people. And with our position, it's so easy to really understand our staff members, because I mean, we only have so many of them, and we work with them all the time, that it's really pretty easy to gauge and understand. Okay, this person likes this person likes that. This is really important to this person, and really work and personalize your motivation style based on each employee. It's not all one size fits all. That's a mistake I made. Where like, hey, how come no one's really that hungry, for money like I am? Because they shouldn't be, they're not, and that's totally fine. But we, as agency owners, I think it's really important for us to understand what gets every person motivated, and really personalize it, and try to you know use what they want, um, and motivate them that way.
So to a certain level, you really got to get to know your staff, because
Absolutely.
everybody's a little different. So you can't come in and just have your nose in the air and say I'm the boss and walk around like you're the best thing that's ever happened to them. You've got to actually befriend these people, and that's great advice from you there.
I almost take it even as far as like, hey, I look at it like I work for them. Like, what do you want? What do you need? What's going on with you? Like, how can I help you? You know, and once you get to that level of, sometimes as new agency owners or any agency owner, we kind of have like an ego where like you work for me, I'm a boss now, and really tell them what to do. And that type of leadership will work maybe in the short term, but in the long term, really what's so much better is when you provide so much value to them, you're doing so much for them, and you're loyal to them, you're committed to their goals, you understand what they want, and you really, get them licensed, you train them, with the best training you can, and you know what you're doing and showing them, and their income is going up. Eventually, there's going to be a situation where they're going to be like, okay, this guy has come through, he has helped me, and now I'm going to in return give back to him. So a lot of times I think as agency owners we expect them to give to us before we give to them, or my philosophy is like, let's give to them first. Once you give so much to them, then in return we're going to get their commitment, their work ethic, back to us, and that's where you kind of earn your loyalty. So I give my loyalty to them first, and then hope that they'll give it back to me later.
Absolutely. And I think staff is very important. That's why I allow people to let their staff into this group so they can learn from us as well. And one of the things that I've actually heard from other people's staff when they reach out to me is I'm not getting the training that I feel that I need. And I tell them, well, ask, you have to have this conversation with your boss, and that's the only way that it's going to really happen is if you're transparent about it. So if you feel, don't be scared of asking for help is my advice always. And so piggybacking off what you said about training, how do you go about training your staff? Do you have something in place? Are you constantly training them? Like, do you have a person that's in the office training them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So right now we have 11 people in my office, and this is right now my office here, but I only spend like 1% of my time in here. So 99% of the time I'm out there in the cubicles. The people that sit closer to me are the newest ones, and the people who are sitting further than me are the ones that have been with me for 9 years, 5 years, 6 years. So I am very involved when it comes to training. I wish there was an easier way. I do have a couple people who are very. It takes a certain skill set to be able to train somebody too, and those people are very valuable too. So not everyone I hire, doesn't become sales superstar. You never know which way their career path goes, but there's so many ways they could bring value to the team to win. So some of them, a couple of them do help me with the training. For example, like I'm in here right now, they're helping some of the newer ones out right now if they need help, and they sit closer to those newer people too. But when it comes to training, that's a full-time job. And again, that's why I like to take a step back from selling and doing customer service, because I want to be available to be able to train somebody, and I want to be available to also recruit. So recruiting is hard, but training is also hard. And these are jobs that we really can't expect our staff members to do unless, you just have somebody that qualified. But I feel like it's such an important job that I really can't just say, hey, can you please train somebody? Because um, it's that important of a job. Like that's my job. I feel like training somebody and how to handle a situation, doing role plays, or, coaching them, and sometimes criticizing them, doing reviews, and really helping them get better is, I look at it as, you know, my job. So when it comes to training, it's eventually, hopefully down the line, I'll have somebody that's really, so I've trained somebody to become a trainer, and I'll get there. And that's a big part of a goal, because um, then I could focus on even more things. But for now, I would say more that, training is something that I'm doing all the time,
Uh,
all the time.
Great. So we got a couple questions I'll shoot out there
Oh,
from the chat. Do you make your employees jump through hoops before you hire them? That's You don't really want to do that, but I'll let you answer that.
That's a good question. It really depends on the situation. If I'm fully staffed and I'm like, which is never really the situation. So I really don't, but I do have them go through some, things where I just want to make sure I don't want to waste my time where I just have interviews over interviews. And sometimes I already know in 5 seconds, like this is not going to work out, but just for like courtesy, they're here for an hour. So I don't have that time. So I will ask them some few questions by email and see how they reply, just to see if they could write professionally. I will have them leave me a voicemail. I'll purposely won't answer to see what type of voice they have because, how you sound over the phone is very important. So if you can't leave a professional voicemail, I don't want to go through the process. I will have them, fill out do the ideal traits assessment, because that will give you a good insight too. So I'm not, they're not really hoops. And sometimes I'll hire somebody on the spot. So it's very depends on the candidate. But if I'm not 100% sure, then I will kind of like, not respond for a while and see if they follow up or not. So it really depends. There's not one way, depends on the candidate, depends on the agency situation. I wouldn't say I haven't run through hoops because I'm more grateful, like, hey, you want to work for me? That's awesome. you know? So I wouldn't, do it through in a sense of like, because of my ego, I'm making them run through the hoops. I'm just maybe going through a little bit of process because I just want to be efficient with my time.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, that's fantastic. Would you mind sharing some of those questions with us in the group that you asked them through email and stuff like that?
Through email, yeah, sure. I'll be like, hey, what do you think you'll be a good fit here?
Okay.
I'm just looking for someone or like what motivates you, you know? Thanks for asking that question. Hey, what motivates you? Or like, and I'm kind of just looking for people who want to think long term. They want to be an insurance agent. They don't want to just do this as a summer job. So trying to like, figure out how motivated they are. And really a lot of it is if they could write professional or not too, because we do a lot of communication these days with text and emails. So you want to have somebody that could communicate,
Yeah,
and professionally. So you'll be surprised because I have such entry level positions with not much of a high wages that I have to really like make sure this person's at least is a good communicator. That's what I'm really looking for.
yeah, that's a great thing to do there. Another question in the chat here is: I've listened to one of your meetings where you allow your staff to use their cell phone for work. What if you think they're using it for personal use? I have a girl that I have that uses it to work to reach out to friends, but I notice that she's on it a lot, and I know it's for personal. So,
Mm,
what is your, your what's the word I'm looking for? Do you allow them to sit there on their cell phones?
that's a great question. Yes, I do. Um, Part of it is because I'm always on my cell phone. Okay, so and I use my cell phone for 90% of the time business. So it's different. I get it, and you guys are probably too, but I feel like if you take their cell phone away, then you're literally putting them in jail, depending on their age. It's like I can't use my cell phone at work, then it's like I don't want to work here.
Yeah.
So there has to be some leniency, but we have to balance that out with like, hey, how productive are you being?
Yes.
So some of the things I would do to combat that is to track their activity with their work phone. Hey, how many calls did you make? How many hours were you on the phone? And really promote that and use that statistics. And you maybe even incentivize that. I don't go that far, but say, hey, especially if you have a couple of employees, you could say like, hey, staff A was on the phone, this made this many calls, staff B wasn't. Hey, good job. Really reward and recognize um, activity, because if they're making good activity, in the long run the results will come. So really just looking at their activity and saying like, hey, your activity is a little low, what's going on in the reviews, maybe saying like, hey, is your phone maybe being a little distractive, maybe put it down a little bit, but maybe you want to balance that out. So really in not like a threatening way where you're like you're not allowed to do that, like, hey, put your phone down, or like having like a strict like policy, being a little bit more like hey, I'm trying to help you increase your productivity. What can we do? And bring that up in a way where it's not like I'm taking away from you. Because if you say like you can't use a cell phone at work, that might come off to an employee who literally grew up there with their cell phone. it may be a work situation where they may not want to stay there. And employee retention is absolutely important, but employee production is absolutely important. So we have to keep both things in mind. So I would have a very understanding conversation with them, and figuring out like, hey, maybe it's a distraction, maybe, bringing that up, in a soft way, but also just letting them know that you are aware. Sometimes I think my problem sometimes in the past was that I was a little too soft, and I don't bring it up because it's like, but it's not even confrontational. You just bring it up, and that helps them understand that, hey, he's checking, he understands what's going on. I appreciate that he's looking out for me and he's letting me know that it is too much. I agree it's probably too much. That's going to probably be the conversation. And then you could, like, correct their behavior a little bit. But it is a balance because you do get a lot of, you make all the connections, and in sales, this business is all about making connections. So I'm mind blown when agency owners say, I don't let my staff touch their cell phone at all. I'm like, how can they sell to their friends and family? So it's like, that's the extreme where I just understand. I'm maybe more a little bit too lenient, but obviously they can't be on their phones just getting entertained while you're paying them. So it's a big
Yeah,
balance there. But I lean towards like letting them use their cell phones, but making sure it's more for productivity, and check them if necessary.
absolutely. And that balance, it's tough. You don't want to be a parent, but I have met an agent that told me he has a shelf behind every desk, and when they come in, they have to put their cell phone up there. And I was like, it sounds like you're running like a jail almost. Like, who wants to come into work? Would you want to go into work and do that? And he actually said, no, I wouldn't, but I'm the boss. I get to tell them what to do. And I'm like, well, that's part of your problem, bro. Like, you probably have a lot of turnover. But it's a hard balance. I 100% agree that they should have access to it. But you got to let them know that you're paying attention.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody else asked, do you share your business plan and vision with them before you hire them to see if they're a good fit?
Yeah, I do. That's a great question. It's important for them to understand what their duties are, but it's also important to understand what your vision is. I think that's a great question. I'm glad someone brought that up because they're gonna feed off your motivation. So if you have big visions, they're gonna see that, hey, this person is going somewhere. This person really is involved and engaged and has dreams. And I tell them, hey, I have big goals, and I have people with high ambition levels for, it's in a selfish way, like for me to reach them. So I'm looking for highly ambitious people. And some people will feel like, oh, this is cool. Like this person is going somewhere and I want to ride this wave. And some people will say like, okay, this guy's a little too much, and that's fine. So I let them know that, hey, I'm here to win. I have big goals, and I'm looking for people who have big goals too. So sharing that vision, not only when you recruit them, but constantly, is really important because, I put themselves in their shoes. Like, people just naturally want to be on a winning team,
Mhm.
and people are allowed to pick their employer. So if I put them in their shoes, naturally, they're going to want to work for somebody, work at a place that's winning. So I let them know, hey, my intentions are to win. So I think that helps a lot with recruiting. People, your drive and your passion is gonna rub off on them, and they're gonna want to join something like that. So, and then also their particular potential within the agency, I promote. I'm selling that all the time. Luckily for me, I have some living proof of people who have been here for a while, that are doing great things, financially for themselves and their family, and not just financially but happiness level. So I have living proof of staff members here. But even if you don't have that, you can still write out a vision of like, hey, you know what are your goals? Like, you want to buy a house, like, okay, let's work on that. Let's try our best. How are we going to do that? Okay, and think about, like, again, working from them mentality. You're going to be like, okay, now this is this person's goal. I'm going to have to get this many leads or spend this much on marketing, or I'm going to have to invest in this, or I got to figure out this type of marketing or follow-up system. Like, you're just going to use your creativity to figure out what the end goal is. So understanding, them knowing what your goals are, and you understanding their goals, I think that is very important in the recruiting process, and forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And it builds the foundation of that relationship that you have with that employee as well. So that's a great answer there. Uh, Next question I have for you. You touched on compensation a couple of times. Would you mind sharing with us how you compensate your staff?
Yeah, sure. So when I recruit them, and it kind of depends on their situation and also the agency situation, but the base is gonna fluctuate from $15 an hour to 17.50 an hour right now. Okay, unless they have some special skills, um, which I really run into, um, which is maybe like being able to take excellent photos or edit videos or some type of marketing skills that. But usually use freelancers for that. So I would say 15 to 17 and a half, you know, that's just based on intuition. If you're like, hey, this person is going to be great, I feel like they're worth a little bit more, I'm going to spend a little bit more. And that person is like, hey, I just want an opportunity, and it kind of depends on their situation. So that does fluctuate, to be honest with you, depending on the employee.
And do you give them a commission off of the sales?
Of course, yeah. So in the beginning, they're mostly not licensed, so that's their compensation. But we could still compensate them for good, activity. So if they take a certain amount of payments, we have like a payment contest. If you get a 5-star review, if you help somebody on a claim, if you renew a policy, renewal payment, if you add a driver in a car. So some CSR work, you could get $10, $15, $20 here and there. So I like to compensate them for good activity, even from the beginning. Now, in about 6 months, they should get their license. So once they get their license, they're able to sell. Okay, they're not going to get leads right away, because the leads are going to my top closers. So they're going to be able to do FFRs and get referrals. My compensation system basically is 10% of the premium. So if it's like $1,000 6 months auto policy, then they get $100. If it's like $1,000 homeowners policy for a year, then they get $100. It's very simple. There's no tiers. And once you're with me for years and you have shown that you had the ability to follow up and close business, then they kind of start, so they start from here, and then there's a career path. So really the highest level is when you're just basically able to do sales mostly 90% of your day. And those are the ones that obviously have the higher income because they're getting the better leads and they have higher income potential. So I feel like, leads is something that they're gonna have to earn. Um, but in the beginning, I would just, say just have a very simple compensation plan. I think that's important. I I I, I kind of get confused when some people explain to me their compensation plans. There's different tiers and there's different like levels, and it could get confused. So I like to keep it very simple. So it's just 10%. And the base could fluctuate also. It could go up if they're maybe helping, like for example, like the people who are helping me train. you know that's something that you can't really do off commission. So I'll and some people are more customer service oriented, so they'll have some retention based income potential there. So I kind of mix it up for each person, but in basically I just um, really have a lower base because 1750 even still, so that's pretty low. But I like to have a higher potential based on performance.
Okay. And how about for renewals? Are they getting renewals too?
Not the sales producers.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more upfront.
Okay.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I understand how that's tiered because we came from that background that had a very similar compensation system. So,
Really, and then the compensation system is very similar to what I learned from AAA because as employees we didn't get renewals, right?
nope.
But I think what makes sense to me is that our producers are they need to see sorry, upfront like reward for a sale, because selling insurance is not easy. So if you write a big household, you want to make sure it affects them right away, like instant gratification.
Mhm.
And as a business owner, I don't necessarily need my next folio. I'm not worried about that one. I'm worried about the folio, next year's folio, and the year beyond that. So I'm in a position where I could pay more upfront and really have them be motivated, where they're like, okay, if I sell a lot this month and I'll get more this month. They're not, some of them may, but they're not really thinking like, okay, well, I get a little bit right now and then I'll get a little bit in 6 months. They're like, okay, I gotta pay the rent right now. So I like to highly more upfront, and then more back end for me is kind of like my style of the compensation plan.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Somebody said, do you have any of your staff go out during the day and physically knock on doors to bring in leads?
No, and not to say that doesn't work, but that's not really my agency style. Okay, and it kind of depends on your market. But my market, if you did that, it actually might be, you might be in like dangerous areas, and it might not be a great, you know, it's just not going to be um, effective, and it's your return's not going to be. So, but that again, very depends on understanding your market and your demographic. But that's not really what we do as our agency.
Yeah, if you're in like a rural like area and people are very tight knit, then
Hmm.
that may make a little bit more sense. But for me and you in Los Angeles, that ain't gonna fly around here.
Yeah, yeah.
So you started when you first started your agency. It was just you, right?
Mhm.
And what were you doing? Did you go out there and buy leads? Did you start with your circle of influence? How did you scale to where you are?
Yeah, in the beginning, um, day two, I started buying internet leads. Day one, I sold myself a policy and my parents a policy. And coming from AAA, where I was getting incoming calls from the call center, I was used to being busy, and
Yeah.
I'm still have this. It's just my natural nature to want to be very busy. Like I feel like even if it's not productive, like at least if I'm busy, I feel like at the end of the day, I feel good about myself, and I just like just who I am. I guess I just need to be busy. So day two, after I sold my own policy and my parents' policy, I literally had nothing to do. This is 2007, and I just went on Google and I typed in, insurance leads, and I just started buying leads because I just needed something to do. Like I just, and I feel like that's something that I want to share with everybody is that let's just try to be busy. I think there's a little bit of stigma of or goal of like, hey, I'm gonna get renewals and I'm gonna just be cruising it. I'm gonna live in life, don't even have to work hard, and that is going to be something that you could strive for and achieve in this business, and that's going to be, but if you want that, uh, you're going to have to work hard, really hard for a long periods of time to be able to get there. And for me, once I started enjoying being busy, I don't even want to get there. Like even if I have monster renewals coming in, I still want to grow my business. So I bought leads. I was not scared to lose money. I think that's really important, that I see myself, that I saw in myself, and looking back now, like, man, I didn't really care if I lost money. Like, that's how desperate I was to want to be busy. You know, I was playing poker at the time back in 2007, the World Series of Poker, and that was all like huge. And I was like making pretty good money at AAA. So I was going to Hawaiian Gardens playing all these like high stakes poker, and I would go there and I would lose sometimes, obviously, and sometimes I'll win. But that taught me, like, hey, like if you want to win, you got to put it on the line. So I just started, I was like, hey, what's $1,000? Boom, here you go. Whatever company you are, they don't even exist anymore. And I just buying leads here and there, and like from all these vendors, and I started tweaking out. Oh, this vendor is better. This vendor is not better. Okay, if I follow up this, follow up this. Even when I was losing money, I was still learning. And I think that's something that a lot of agents are scared of, like losing money. But it just depends on your risk tolerance. But I was determined because like you, I had an income to replaced. Like I was making good money at a young age. So, and I wasn't gonna, become an insurance agency owner just to make up that income. I wanted to take it to a whole nother level. So I started getting busy. And once I started getting busy, closing leads, I hired somebody. 6 months into it, they were just my assistant. But that assistant was hearing me close business all the time, literally sitting next to me all the time, hearing me close business. So that person was able to um, get licensed and just basically copy what I'm doing. So there's, in a way, two of me. And then she got busy. So we hired a third person, same things. Now this person's assistant, administrative, secretarial, could hear us closing business. And that's just kind of how it involves, just hiring whenever we feel the need to get busy. Once we're busy enough, that's when I hire. That's really kind of how I've done things. And it just has, the formula hasn't really changed that much. Once we're all busy, then we're like, okay, we need help. We'll hire somebody. They don't know anything, but they'll learn from just listening to us. And then once that person's busy, then we hire another person. So um, that's kind of how it started, Mo. And in a lot of ways, now I'm not calling the leads, but in the beginning, you just have to, just it's survival mode. It's just you just have to close not only inner leads, but I was talking to people at AAA, taking them out to lunch. Like if you can't close the business, send them over to me, or natural market, obviously. Social media wasn't even that big back then, but just trying to make connections there. 2007, man, people were telling me like internet leads is not going to work. Like people say that today. Imagine back in 2007, people were like laughing at me at my district office. People were just like literally laughing at me, like, why are you doing that? That's never going to work. But I was like, hey, how else can I talk to people? And everybody will find a different answer for that. That's not the only way. There's multiple ways to be busy, but regardless of what marketing plan or strategy you have, make sure it keeps you busy.
Absolutely. Yeah, we came from that where they were feeding us leads all day long. Your phone is ringing. They give you a list, and here's another list, and it kept you busy. And that was the biggest shock to me when I came in and sat down. I was like, this thing is not ringing. My emails are not blowing up. What am I supposed to do? So you have to, you've got to make the phones ring somehow, and you've got to find ways to call people. So as far as okay, so let's talk about leads. It's the elephant in the room because this just comes up all the time in the groups. The quality of leads is terrible. The leads don't work. I'm not selling off of them. So when you buy a lead, you're not expecting instant sale, right? Now I hear that a lot. It's a long game. So talk to me a little bit about the different vendors that you've used, who you find most success with, processes that would make agents more successful. How do we actually jump into this lead game and have success with it rather than go and cry about it on social media?
Yeah, let's start there. I think one of the things that we need to take into account is accountability. So when you say, hey, these internet leads don't work, sometimes I want to, say, I'll say something nice, but in my head I'm thinking like, well, maybe you don't work. Like there's something going on, because it's hard to take the accountability and say like, hey, maybe I don't sound good over the phone, maybe I don't know what to say, or maybe I'm not calling them fast enough, or there's so many things where we could improve us to make them work. Now that being said, each vendor is different. So I would not rely on one, but buy from multiple ones and track your sales from there, which one's working, and spend more of your budget into the ones that are working. Some of the things that obviously work is just automation, just really just having systems follow up with them, regularly. Text is huge. I mean, text is being more and more accepted. And email is just like, man, you could just spam anybody and they don't mind that at all. Phone calls, on the other hand, is something where you have to be careful with. If you just call people too much, they just get annoyed, and it's kind of like dating. You don't want to just like sound so desperate. You want to show interest, but you don't want to sound desperate. So it's a fine balance of being, and obviously you could text too much too. I almost feel like you can't email too much now, but you want to check your unsubscribe ratios and for both texts. But I like written follow-ups, basically texts and emails. Um, and um, having producers on a compensation plan that's worth it for them, because again, if your compensation plan is not motivating enough, it's not going to be worth it for them to close an interlead because it's not easy. And I think we also have to lower our expectations a little bit, where I hear agency owners hire somebody, just get licensed, and then they're doing interleads. It's like you're competing against some highly skilled people there, that it's kind of unrealistic for that process to work too. So I like the idea of, if you're new in the internet leads game, for you to master it, you to become the master, like you buy the lead, you understand what's going on. And then once you know what you're doing, be able to train that and have somebody else doing it. And it's a lot of work and it's not easy, but who else is going to go hard on the lead when you're the one who bought it? And the compensation is the biggest for you because you get to keep it. So, man, there's so many things we could talk about there, Mo, but I will start off with accountability, tracking, following up, obviously. Um,
You got to have systems in place. That's one thing I've learned.
yeah,
Help your staff, help the people that you're giving these leads to, because if you can't, it's one thing to train and track someone. It's another thing to expect them to just do it, right? And you don't really know if they're doing it until you see their sales numbers, right? But if you help them and automate things, like I personally use Agency Zoom. Their automations are amazing. They text and email people. So every one of the leads that I ever buy, they go directly into that system, and a text message and email is sent out immediately. Like, hey, we got your info. We're ready to quote you. When's a good time to talk? We're also picking up that phone and making the phone call initially, but a lot of times you don't get the person on the phone on the very first ring, right?
right.
So, do you have anything in place like that? Are you using automations? Are you
Oh,
using?
yeah.
So, what do you use? Are you using Apex?
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me.
I've had a system in place from the past. So if you don't have a system, I think Apex is great. Well, I haven't really even played with this, so I'm not giving a fair answer, but I already had something in place, years ago, and it's actually something I developed myself. So it's not like a system, but it's basically the same thing where, I use Zapier and I basically created things. So this takes a lot of time. I don't probably recommend it. Now that there's, systems like Agency Zoom out now, I would just, have pay a company to kind of like that already have something built out. But I have like a custom thing that I kind of built with Zapier and using these different software. So that's kind of what I do. But it's basically the same thing. We got to follow up with them. We got to ask questions. We got to, link them to our social media. We got to let them know who we are. We got to, email them, videos. We got to email them pictures. Be transparent on who we are. And it's almost like brand building. Maybe they might not buy from your first transaction, but they're gonna see you following up. They're gonna see your face. They're gonna see you're gonna even maybe check your social media, follow you, or see what you're about. And eventually in the future, you're gonna when they think about insurance, they'll think of you. So it is a long game. I do agree with that, Mo, big time. Where I think sometimes when people buy leads, and I get it, it's more transactional. You're looking at the ROI, like, hey, I spent this much, I paid a producer this much, and then it doesn't look good, on paper. Like, wow, this didn't work out. I'm losing money here.
Mhm.
But one of the things I could tell people through experience is that, yeah, even though I'm losing money because I'm paying the hourly, I'm paying the leads, I'm paying full commission, more than full commission. In the long run, it works out. And I think as agency owners, that's what we're in it for, is for the long run. And it takes a real faith, but I could tell you guys that it does work out. Those people, as long as your retention is decent, they're going to renew. Okay. You could always count on rate increases. Okay. You could cross sell them something, you could get referrals. So it's really not fair and almost impossible to track a ROI of when you bought a lead. So I don't get that analytical really, Mo. I just really look at intuition. I just know that, hey, if I'm spending this much, if I'm getting this much, then it's gonna work out in the long run. And the key to all this is really just patience.
Yeah, that's a great answer, man. And a lot of us will go to these district meetings, the sales meetings, whatever's in your area. They'll sit us down and they'll bring up an agent like you, Dan, and they'll say, "Look at Dan. Look at Dan's numbers. Look how much Dan is quoting. Look how much Dan is closing. These are all internet leads. All of them. Every single one of these is internet leads." And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, it can't be, right? So tell me, is that on point? Like, is it all internet leads?
No. Well, internet leads is what built my agency. But now, with social media, I think that's a big way for us to get leads. And then now when you have a bigger book of business, you get referrals and you get, cross sell opportunities. So there's so much opportunity within your book of business. It is fair to say that internet leads is how I built my agency,
Mhm.
because day one, that's, how I sold my policies. That's how I built it. But of the 600 policies we sell each month, that's not going to be all from internet leads. No, maybe like half. So um, yeah, there y- and I think there's a little bit of I kind of want to be, I don't want to discourage anybody when people look at the numbers, because it's just, it took time, it took a long time to be, to develop the staff, to get them skilled enough, to get them experienced enough, to understand which vendors are better or what follow-up system is better. I'm still tweaking it all the time. So I hate it for an agent to look at numbers or anything like that, other agents' numbers, and really get discouraged. I really want and like agents to really look at their own numbers more carefully than other agents' numbers and figure out how to beat your previous month. Just really be focused in on that, because what works for me may not, because everybody has their own style. And that's the beauty of this business. I think a little bit of like what I'm afraid of, like when I talk, is like, hey, I want to do exactly what he does, or I want to, do what works for you, because you understand your business more better than anybody else. And there's so many ways to win in this business that you want to understand what your strengths are. Okay. What type of connections you have, if you like, you know, websites and SEO and, Facebook and digital marketing. If you don't like it, there's agents that are killing with, so many different ways, so find out really what works for you and look at your numbers and look at your marketing budget, because everybody's different. So it's you don't really, there is a little bit of value maybe, for inspiration, things like that, but I just want people to really look at within themselves and understand, like, okay, what's my ambition level, what's my risk tolerance, how bad do I really want this, what do I really want out of my agency, what type of lifestyle do I want, how many staff members do I want, how big do I want my agency, and really figure out what you want, and then how do I want to market, who do I want to market, what type of clients do I want, and really figure out what you want and really work on yourself more than this is working for that person's buying your lead, so I should, because that's not the only way. And that's, sometimes I almost don't recommend, like, hey, if you don't have the stomach for it, to, because there's a lot of, you know there's a lot of money lost. There's a lot of hard lessons learned, so it's like, are you sure that's what you want? So understanding what you want, I think, is something that's very important, and a good exercise and practice that I think we all should be doing.
Absolutely. One thing I took away from Keith Wagner is he said that if you have more fishing lines in the water when you're out fishing, you're more likely to catch more fish. So you've got to diversify on what you're doing. You can't just buy internet leads. And there's a million other things that you could be doing to get business. And looking within your book of business is one of them. So, just sitting there and waiting for things to happen, waiting for your phone ring, that's setting yourself up for failure, right? Um,
Absolutely.
and before I forget, I really respect that you built your own system from Zapier, because I know how much time that takes, and I know how much trial and error you had to put into that. So that mad shout out to you for doing that, man. That takes some grit. Uh,
Yeah,
but
no, thank you.
I
Yeah, but
want to touch on one or two more things before we go. Okay.
sure.
Um, the the training and compensation and staff is all very important, and it didn't happen overnight for you to get to 11 people, of course, right? But what is the best advice you could give a new agent on, how to scale in a way where it'll be sufficient for not just your agency growing, but to get the DMs and sales managers off your back?
Yeah, I would say the most important thing is to have a consistent marketing system, because if you have a consistent marketing system, even though recruiting and hiring is difficult, but sometimes as agents we kind of look at staff first and we hire people, and they're like, okay, what are they going to do now? We're not even that busy, we're like hiring people, and we're like, okay, who are we going to call now? So if you get the marketing question out of the way, where, okay, this is what I'm going to do for marketing, I'm going to spend this much on marketing, this is how many leads we're going to get. And if it's a scalable marketing system where you could say, okay, I'm spending $1,000 now, okay, so I spend $2,000 and I'll get double the leads. If you have a marketing system that is scalable, that works, then a lot of our job gets a lot easier, because, okay, now I'm spending this much, I'm able to spend this much now next year because the renewals kicked in. Now I can recruit. So sometimes I think agency owners go a little bit backwards, where they're like, okay, I got to have the team. You can have the best staff member in the whole world, but if they don't have the opportunity or leads, or things to do. uh, you can have the best location, you can have the best staff member, you can be the best leader possible, but where's the gasoline? Where's where's the where's the meat? Like like we need we need the marketing. I think that is how to scale. Because once you figure out the marketing, then you can find people. You'll be able to find people because you'll be able to say, hey, you'll be getting this many leads, and look at this person, they're making this much money, and it's going to be a lot easier to recruit. So I will start off with marketing when it comes to scaling. Then you have to have obviously the recruiting system, the training process, the employee retention system, the motivation system, training. I think I said that already, but so marketing first, scaling first, and then to scale it will be all about culture. Because you can have a great marketing system, great staff members, but the culture isn't good, then it will start falling apart. So when it comes to culture, it's going to have to be a culture of customer service, because you're going to have to keep your clients. So customer service culture, like everybody does it. I do it. Like we value our customers. And then teamwork, because it could get pretty highly competitive once you have several producers with a lot of leads, and like, politics and who's getting the leads and who stole my policy and all that. So the teamwork culture is super important too. So I will start off with marketing, then staffing, then culture. That's how you scale. Those three ways. And took me a long time to learn that, but I will say those are the three ways to scale your business, because man, it's a great business once you start figuring things out, as simple as that. It's a great business. So it's very rewarding, it's very challenging, and it's always changing. And it's like I said, I'm blessed because being busy is a blessing. And that's kind of how I feel every day, is that hey, I get to come into work here and be busy and train people and recruit people, and look at marketing and see how I can improve it, and making sure you have a good eye on customer service and teamwork.
No, you have an incomparable work ethic, and I see that through your posts. I see that through your results, and that's why I'm very glad that I was able to sit down with you and have the chance to pick your brain a little bit and share this with other agents. So that being said, congratulations to you, sir, for everything that you've done so far. But reading between the lines of some of the things that you've said, you touched on marketing a few times, and branding yourself is an important thing, because you want people to remember who you are and who to come back to when they have a question about insurance, or if they have an insurance need, right? So tell me, what do you think? How important is it to brand yourself? Because these guys do a great self job of branding themselves, right?
Mhm.
So what are you doing to put yourself out there, and how important is that?
That's a great question, Mo. By the way, the questions are great. This interview. This is you guys do this every Wednesday,
Every
or
other
this is a group
week.
every other Wednesday, and this is off the Facebook group, right?
Yep, this is all for the Facebook group, man. And full disclosure here, I don't get anything out of this. Like, people ask me all the time, like, what's your end game? They think I'm making money off of this. I don't. The only thing I'm really getting out of this is I'm learning from great agents like yourself. And I saw that we needed a place for everybody to get together and try to help one another out. So you know that's why I created this group, because I noticed that some of the other farmers groups, if you say the wrong thing, you'll get kicked out, or you'll get berated, or people will come down on you and stuff like that. And that's not the kind of environment that it should be. So that's why I created this group.
Man, that's awesome. I want to acknowledge you for that, and helping out not only yourself but the other members in the group. So the questions are great, and I really think you're doing a great job doing that,
Thank you.
doing this. But yeah, when it comes to branding yourself, I mean, it's a must. I think one of the things that I don't really brand myself, because I'm not the one doing the sales, but I brand my agency big time. And I think one of the things in sales is that people want to buy from people that they know, or at least they feel like they know. So a lot of times when you call internet leads, like, who are you? That's like the biggest like challenge. So having the brand recognition, that's very helpful, because everybody knows farmers, and it's absolutely, I believe, the best company, and people know that, and it's quality company. So that helps. But we want to take it another step further. and just let people know who we are. We have nothing to hide. We're professional, friendly insurance agents that are here to help people. So why should we have any type of, and this is a topic that I totally get when we're a little hesitant, right? But I could tell you from my experience that the more activity I have on social media, the better it has been for my business. Just as much as possible. That's, just putting out content in there and just letting people know that, hey, we're here. We're not even telling people to call us. We're just letting people know that, hey, we got a 5-star review. We're working hard today. Happy Monday. Happy Friday. You know, thank God there's holidays because there's something to talk about. But just putting out content out there, letting people know that we're real people, we're transparent, and we're here to help people. I think that is really the direction where the agencies that are going to win, and even the insurance companies that are going to win, are the ones that are going to be the best at providing value on social media.
Absolutely. Do you have your own website?
I do.
Okay. So common theme, guys. Every superstar agent that we've brought on is, when I ask them that question, they say, yes, I do. Okay. So if that's not something that you've done yet, I absolutely recommend it. I have my own website as well. And branding yourself is that important because we have a huge brand behind us. You just got to get out there and let people know who you are, who your agency is, and make that the go-to place for people that are searching for insurance. And do you do your own posts on social media, or do you have like a marketing company or a marketing person in office that does it for you?
Right now, I do it myself. I did have like a marketer position that was basically taking pictures and posting it for me. That position, I'm actually looking to fill right now. So in the meantime, I'm doing it myself. But that's kind of how I started it, is doing it myself, learning it, and then I'll train somebody to do it. So taking, high quality pictures, being able to edit videos, those are some skills that's gonna really, it's almost like replacing the old telemarketer. Like the telemarketer used to call
Mhm.
all the time. The new age telemarketer are the ones that who could make posts look nice and, come up with cool captions or find humor in insurance, or build some type of value where it will be like, okay, this is worth following. So that's a skill set that's going to really make a difference in the long run. So I encourage everybody to look at social media, post more often, see what type of post gets more engagement, make connections, you know, be in, messaging people, starting conversations, or DMing people, or have people DM you. Hopefully they ask you questions about insurance, and just being really active on there is going to be a way for it to lead to business. It has led to employees for me. Um, People can't do business with you if they don't know you, and just being known is kind of like part of the um, part of the game now. So branding yourself, Mo. I'm glad you really brought that up. You really touched on all these important subjects here, because moving on forward, that's going to be more important than ever. And yeah, we're farmers agents that could get us so far, but hey, now you know my face. Now you see. Now you know what I'm about. Now you know what I believe in, and you, getting them to feel like they know you. Sales is a big game of, trust. And if they feel like they know you, that you're already, and if they're calling you or reaching out to you from them, you already put yourself in a good situation to be able to win more business.
Absolutely, absolutely. I go as far as, I have a marketing company that helps me out with SEO. I'm paying $400 or $500 a month just to make sure that I rank properly when somebody searches for insurance. But then I have a website that when they click on, they know, okay, this guy didn't make his own website on like Wix or something like that. This is a professional website. Let's give this guy a call. So branding yourself 100% is very, very important. And you've got to spend money to make money. That's the common theme here, guys. Whether it be internet leads, branding yourself, marketing, whatever it is, you can't be afraid of spending money to get more money in the long run. So just to wrap this up, there's a couple questions that I didn't ask you. Thoughts on a sole agent building business through part-time staff, considering hiring people like teachers who love their work but would like to make an extra income on the side. If I pay them 8%, they could help me hit bonus each folio. Just brainstorming. What are your thoughts?
Um, well, the teacher will technically have to be licensed to be able to pay them. So I think that's kind of like a compliance issue. It could be. I think you're able to pay per lead. Like if you bring in a lead, then you could pay them. I think that's okay, but you can't really pay them per sale. So that could get a little tricky, and I'm not sure how scalable that could be.
That
But
question is more of like a, it's geared toward that person that asked that question really. So, um,
no, no, I like that question though. I like that detailed question. I want to help that person. Um, yeah. So there's a little bit. Yeah, there's great ways to. I like where that person is going. Hey, they have a lot of contacts. They have people respect them in the community. So having a real good relationship with them and maybe working it out where if you send me a lead, then this. More of that rather than per sale. I think per sale is uh, could get discouraging for them because it's like, hey, I sent you this many, but what's going on with you? So it's like, hey, if you send me a lead, then this, and just building relationship with their natural market, who you like working with, the teachers. I do like having staff that are full time though. Part time staff members, it's okay for certain positions, but really you want their full commitment. I at least ask for a full time schedule to be able to commit to my agency, and you want to have more committed individuals at your agency than people who are kind of like that's not my real job, but I just want to like make some extra money. You can't really expect as much, whereas you find people that are, I need a full-time job, I need to feed my family, I have a kid I have to look out for, and really need to like make something out of my career. Recruiting for those type of people is, I think, a lot better.
yeah, and teachers are great because they like to educate people. And
Hmm.
if you take the time to actually educate somebody about insurance, they're a lot more likely to buy from you. And last question I see here is, do you help your staff get licensed?
Yeah.
Okay, so are you paying for their licensing as well?
100%. I
Right.
pay for the renewals.
Yeah.
um in the big scheme of thing, that's not that much, but to them it's like very like, to them it's something they appreciate. So you know Mo, you said it, you got to make money to spend money. I also like to say, scare money don't make money, but in general I have spent money. If you're like, hey, should I spend money on this or should I not, just spend it, because it's just gonna it's what we are as business owners, entrepreneurs. We're in the business of making investments, and it's not an investment until you put some money in there. So usually when you spend money in those type of things, that it just works out better for me. There's no like, oh, you got to get your license in a certain amount of days, or there's no like, oh, you pay me back, or there's no like, you pay and I reimburse you. It's too confusing. I just pay for it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely on point. We have gone over an hour now. So again, I really want to thank you for taking the time with us today. We could sit here for 2, 3 hours and keep this going, but we don't have the time for that as agency owners. So thank you very much, Dan, for coming on here today. I'm going to ask you to do it again in the future, man, because this was great. I learned a lot. I'm sure others learned a lot. And we would definitely love to have you back on here.
Yeah, no, I'm honored to be asked again to be back on here. I really wish everybody best of luck, and yeah, I want to keep engaged with your guys' group. I think you're doing a great job here, Mo. So really happy to be on here, and yeah, let's end this meeting so we could all get to some sales before the folio ends.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for joining.